What is up? You have found I Like the Blazers. I am your host, Brandon Goldner, and I am ecstatic to share that we have an old friend. You know who he is. Who the hell are you? It's Keith.
Hello.
Keith Feltner-Smith. What's up, man?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again.
Dude, yeah, it's really good to see you too. Keith Feltner-Smith of the Trailcasters with Ty Delbridge. Obviously, we may or may not have done a few podcasts together in our time.
Yeah, we got some of that going, man. You helped me grind my teeth, get my start going. So
Grind your teeth? Are your teeth okay?
Sharpen your teeth. Flat. What's the phrase?
Yeah, I think sharpen your teeth. Your teeth are looking pretty good though.
Thank you. Appreciate it. No braces.
Wait, remember that time? That the first time we went to NBC and we did the test when they were like, and at the end I was like,
when
oh
we
shit,
were almost the outsiders. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, totally. But then I was like, at the very end, I'm like, hey, I think is there something? And you're like, you didn't tell me I had something in my teeth like the whole time.
That's right. So I'm good today. I'm doing all right.
Yeah, you look great. Cool. And by the way, like you couldn't even tell it was so small. Anyway, grinding your teeth, sharpening your teeth, however you want to put it. Yeah, dude, it's good to see you again. You know what's not been quite as good are the Blazers.
Yeah.
It's been rough. And
now it's good to see them.
Yeah, I feel like, I appreciate that you always come with the Blazers memorabilia. You have, you have the shirt, you have, is that a Rip City blanket? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, I actually got that for Christmas this year from my father-in-law. It's a nice, very soft, comfy blanket.
Nice, dude.
Looks pretty sweet.
That's sick. The thing that I got that I'm stoked about, so Cassie had a pass to the Nike employee store. Dang, that's huge.
Yeah, it's like too big to actually see on camera, sorry.
No, I want one of those. And I got one of the cream color, the vertical Rip City kind of retro throwback jerseys.
Nice, dude. I want to get that. I was really divided at first. I didn't like it, and I'm totally interested in your story. But it is warmed up on me, I guess. So please tell me about this beautiful jersey that I've not added to my collection yet. What you got? Who'd you get?
So I got McCollum. Partly because the sizes that were available, it goes from like small to like double XL, and so McCollum had a medium. And here's the thing about these jerseys that I so appreciate. Like, I don't know if you find this, that like some of the jerseys are very boxy, like they fit super weird, like around the arms. And so this one is like a nice kind of fitted, not like super tight, but just like it looks like really good. It hangs well, and so that's why I actually appreciate it a bunch. Is it just looks good on the body. So yeah.
To be honest, I feel like I'm not sure if it was a change they made when they switched to Nike, but I do feel like the jerseys recently have been way better fitted for, let's say, just the general fan body. And let's be honest too. A lot of fans are probably a little more barrel-chested than you and I are. But even you're more so on the extreme. I'm trying to get there. I'm working on it. They are fitting better now, and I'm glad to hear that one fits well. I definitely am looking for one of those, and so hopefully at some point, honestly, I think ideally I would like to find a Melo one of those cream colors, because I feel like it's a unique jersey for this year, and he's obviously a unique player, a unique Blazer for this year, I'd say. And I'm also not super itching to get a Hassan Whiteside jersey right now, so yeah, it would be Melo if I could make this work.
Oh man, let's actually talk about both those players in a second. But before we do, let's go NBA wide, just so we can avoid talking about the Blazers for 1 second.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about this. I know it's been a couple days, but John Beilein is the 66-year-old coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and there has been a decent amount of reporting and a lot of on-court malfeasance or like curmudgeonness from the players, indicating that maybe he doesn't have the best control of this locker room, doesn't have buy-in from the team. So John Beilein, talking to his team at the end of a practice, apparently calls this group of predominantly black young NBA athletes, calls them thugs, saying that you're no longer playing like a bunch of thugs. It was reported by Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. And John Beilein claims, and I want to get your take on this, John Beilein claimed, Keith, that he meant to say, he didn't mean to say the word thugs, he meant to say the word slugs. Because
they were playing like a bunch of slugs, Brandon. They were playing slow. That's what he meant to say. They were playing like some slow slugs out there. That's totally what he meant.
So when you hear that, like, let's get to the thugs part in a second, but just what do you think of that? Like, do you believe him when he says, I didn't mean to say thugs, I meant to say slugs? What say you?
Not for a second do I believe that. I'm sorry. Look, I mean, I have heard some people come to the defense of like, look, they were playing really slow. They've been a very bogged down team. And he was trying to give them a compliment. He was trying to say, you guys were playing like slugs. And he even tried to say in his explanation that he's addressed players individually. He's gone and had individual conversations. And they seem okay with his explanation that, oh, look, I was trying to give you a compliment. I was saying you were playing slow and you're not doing it now. Look,
bullshit.
Yeah, it's a weak ass cover up. And honestly, of all the, if this was a word slip, like a slip of the tongue, this is probably one of the worst ones you could have within politically correct speech. You know what I mean? Unless he slips into something that is completely obviously wrong, this is about as bad as you get.
Well, and like, so not to mention that, let's say he really did mean to say slugs and the word thugs.
Give him the benefit of the doubt. But
I mean, I'm not going to, but for 1 second, I will. What does it say about what's going on in your brain that like that's the word that like just happens to tumble out of there is the word thugs? And like the fact that he said, well, geez, I didn't have any idea until people told me after. I had no idea I had used that word. I mean, so you do broadcasting. You have professional experience dealing with clients, with people, and so do I. I know that when I'm addressing people that I'm thinking about my words, and if I mess up, I'm pretty aware, like right away, that you mess up. Like, has there ever been a time that you've been talking to people and you said something and you literally didn't catch that you said a completely different word? Has that ever happened to you ever?
Okay. I will say this. I will say.
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
If we're giving him the benefit of the doubt for a minute, I will say, I've seen on the job where someone on air has said, kind of again, just mixing up their words, putting things in the wrong phrase, and they don't realize until after we're like, hey, just the other day we were working on the No Show. Shout out to Brian and Eric, and Brian was trying to talk about if you don't like the smell of bacon, there's something wrong with you. He was trying to say if you have to like this, but he worded it in a way where if you don't like the smell of bacon, then you're not crazy or something weird like this, where it's like the double negative. He didn't catch it till off air, and we're kind of laughing, me and Eric on the side, when we pointed out to him, and jokes ensue later. So yeah, I get it. Maybe where there's that kind of possibility, and to be honest, I haven't heard the audio of Beilein talking to the players. In my head, I'm trying to imagine, could he have been like, look, you guys used to be playing like a bunch of slugs, and there's some sort of list where he's like, bunch of slugs. Maybe, but even then, you catch that, you say, excuse me, slugs.
Right.
You don't let it go till later. It's not. It doesn't follow up.
I think that what you're describing, like when you're trying to phrase something and use a double negative, or that happens, but using a totally different word, I don't know if that happens. You know what? Whose opinion I'd like to get is Brenda Nuckton of Clearly Speaking, because she is a certified speech language pathologist. She could probably tell us whether it's very common for someone to use a totally different word that happens to rhyme with the word slugs. And by the way, like, I was thinking about, like, after this happened, like, was he going through, shit, what rhymes? Pugs, tugs, slugs. That's
Slugs.
it. Oh. So here's
honestly, I think they were playing like a bunch of pugs. I think they looked like a bunch of pugs out on the floor.
I think friend of both shows, Evan McCarthy, would take umbrage to that. His pug Fat Man is obviously the dopest.
Fat Man's a baller, bro.
Yeah, so let's leave aside whether or not he meant to use one word or the other. I know that some people have said or claimed, not a ton, and frankly not a ton of people in my Twitter basketball circle, but some people have said, well, even if he did use the word thugs, what's the big deal? I wanted to play a clip for us and then get your response to this about the use of the word thug and what it might mean. The audio that we're going to hear is John McWhorter, who's an associate professor of English and comparative literature at Columbia University. This was an interview with NPR back in 2015. So this was 5 years ago now, about the use of the word thug. Take a listen, and then let's get your feedback.
Well, the truth is that thug today is a nominally polite way of using the N-word. Many people suspect it, and they are correct. When somebody talks about thugs ruining a place, it is almost impossible today that they are referring to somebody with blonde hair. It is a sly way of saying, there go those black people ruining things again. And so anybody who wonders whether thug is becoming the new N-word doesn't need to. It most certainly is.
So, Keith, I mean, that's somebody who knows a lot more about this kind of stuff than you and I. How does that resonate with you when you hear that?
Yeah, you said that was a Columbia professor?
That's correct, yep.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty good authority as far as if you want to talk about any sort of intellectual issue like this. Yeah, man, I think that holds up. I think it does make sense that look at who else uses that kind of language nowadays. If we want to reference number 45, if that's the kind of person, if I'm thinking just off the top of my head, someone who's going to be in any context using the word thug, because I think in general people realize, yeah, this is kind of a word that is associated with stuff that you don't want to be saying. You don't want to be. It's not politically correct to go there, and it's referencing. It's referencing racism, and
it's coded language.
Yeah,
right?
Thank you. There we go. That's the phrase I'm looking for. It is coded language, and the only people you see using this are generally people who are racist or prejudiced in some way or another, and it's. And so when you look at Beilein, is it Beilein or Beilein?
I think it's actually Beilein, which is weird. I feel like anyway. Yeah, I think it's Beilein.
Beilein, whatever his name is, he is a very old. Very white man, and so it's not a far jump to think that this guy, like what might have been going through his head. So
well, and the other thing too is this dude doesn't have any NBA experience, so he's been a college coach, a successful one for a long time, and so now in his mid-60s. He's making the jump to the NBA, and the culture of basketball teams in the NBA is so much different than in college, right? Like the coach has this certain standing in college. They are the authority. They do the recruiting. They're the ones in charge. You don't question the coach. And the culture of the NBA is much different, where it's much more, the NBA is becoming a lot less of an army mentality where you follow the general and do whatever the general does, to more of a collegial workplace, which I think is good for professionalism, for the autonomy of the players. And we talk about this phrase that gets used a lot, the player empowerment movement. That to me is a super, super good thing. I mean, these are the people on the court. These are the people who you and I want to watch and want to talk about. These are the people making all the billions of dollars for the league. It's not the coaches. It's not the owners. It's the players. So this guy coming in from college, my final verdict on this, Judge Goldner says that he said thugs, he meant thugs. He didn't think it was going to be a big deal. And then when it started becoming a big deal, he went, oh, shit. And then he backtracked.
Let me ask you this. How much follow-up do you think there's going to be on this? Because I feel like other issues, other similar issues involving, let's say a racial slip of the tongue, however we want to, like the coded language, this stuff has gotten followed up on, especially in the NBA. And I feel like, obviously what Donald Silver did is not the same as this. There's kind of some different levels there. So I'm not trying to even say that Beilein necessarily has to be fired outright, but I think there should be some follow-up. And would you expect an apology at some point from him, more than we've heard so far, or do you think this is going to kind of fade away?
I think that's a really good point, which is what happens next. And the problem is, first of all, it doesn't seem like anything else is going to happen. And second of all, he never gave a real apology. When asked what he would do differently next time, what did he say? He said, enunciate better. So this doesn't allow, seriously, this doesn't allow for any healing or any amount of accountability. Like, here's the thing.
No, man, that's doubling down. That's not accountability at all. Like he's fully like, yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Right. So here's the thing. Like if he had come out and said, hey, during this film session, I used the word thugs. I wanted to say that was wrong. That has racist undertones. And, I am really sorry. That's horrible. I shouldn't have said it. I'm going to explore kind of in myself why I said that, where that came from, and I will be better next time, and I was wrong, period. If he had done that, I think it would have been fine. It would have allowed for accountability.
Is it too late? Is it too late for him to go
I think it's too late, because he's already said, oops, like I didn't know I said it. I didn't mean to say it. So
I agree.
Anyway, I just to say, like, talking about the culture of the locker room, imagine a coach like John Beilein, if he were coaching a team like the Blazers with the expectations that they have and the talent that they have and the culture they have. I wouldn't want this. I'm just saying I think it'd be such an interesting experiment to switch Terry Stotts with John Beilein and see what would be happening in the Blazers locker room night. Because as poorly as the Blazers are playing, and let's, I guess, now pivot to the Blazers. This is about the Blazers after all.
Look, man, I love that we went wide to the NBA and we end up on such a nice, happy, energetic topic.
Well, I mean, so let me just, the real transition is that Terry Stotts is an awesome human being.
Yes.
Dude, and by the way, another white dude in his 60s, and he would never do something like that. So just to say, let's all praise to Terry Stotts, who is trying to hold together this team that has been underperforming badly, that is suffering from all sorts of injuries. The Blazers now find themselves at 16-23, 10th in the conference. Amazingly, they're not that far out of the playoffs. And before we get into individual players, just as an observer, as someone who is in Blazers media, what is the sense that you're getting from other people who are also in the media who have to cover this team? Again, given those expectations, does it feel weird? Does it feel down? What does the energy feel like?
Well, first of all, I gotta say it's crazy weird to hear you refer to me as media. I'm still just a podcaster, and I'm a nerd that works those switchboards for the media. I'm on the edges and just kind of observing. But
you're the media. You're the enemy. Boo.
Yeah, there you go. Right? I'm with you though, man. Praise to Stotts. He's doing all he can with an absolutely wrecked roster. It's crazy. And honestly, you touched on the playoff thing too. That we're not that far out in 10th place. What's the most amazing thing to me, beyond how wrecked our roster is how this has happened all across the league. There are so many teams that are just decimated by injury right now, and it's getting even worse. Philly just lost Embiid, right? I think, is that possibly for the season? Is that
no?
I can't remember exactly.
He dislocated his finger, which, by the way, don't Google those images.
Oh, it is a bad dislocation.
Yuck!
Wow.
He had surgery. He's being evaluated in a few weeks, so he'll be back at some point.
Okay, I wasn't really sure what the timeline was. Yeah, that's not important, though. The league-wide, though, we are seeing injuries like crazy, and it's insane that our roster, with as many injuries as we have, is still possibly on the lower end of the playoffs. I don't even think they should be. I almost wish they would kind of ease off Dame and CJ's minutes, get more run for the young guys. But, hey, even there, now we've lost Skull, so there goes one of our kind of young talents that you would like to see some development time for, following Zach out the same road for that one. But man, I don't know, it's rough. So as far as the feeling, what I'm seeing around the media, as you're calling me now, what I'm seeing from a lot of those people is the same kind of thing, man. There are days in there where people are just like, can we talk football? Can we just avoid Blazers for at least a segment? Because it's rough. It's rough to go over right now.
Well, speaking of Dame's minutes, he's played 37 games this season. Only 5 of those games has he played fewer than 30 minutes, and one of them was the loss last night against the Timberwolves. So, yeah, I'm with you on they need to start limiting his minutes. Excuse me as I give a nice coffee burp there. Yeah, everybody wants to know about that. Yeah, and it's been harsh. Obviously, I mean, you tick down all the injuries and all the people that the Blazers expected to have on the court. Remember, they expected to have Pau Gasol playing some minutes. Rodney Hood out, Nurkic out, Scal out. Who else? Zach Collins out. Who else am I missing? Am I missing anyone else?
Hazonia just re-aggravated his back.
Yep.
He came back for us. And how about that, though? Hazonia alone, just as an example, that dude, when we came into the season, was going to be a fringe bench player. And now he's being relied upon for, I mean, I don't know what his minutes are, what his minutes were last night offhand, but he's not quite a starter, man, but he very well could be if we have one more injury among the front court.
Yeah, it's scary. I will say that for as poorly as Hazonia's been playing, that one thing I enjoyed seeing last night, some people were pointing it out, was the fact that he looks so good in transition, and that's what we saw, right, in preseason. And I think the problem with that is if the Blazers want to have one of either Dame or CJ on the court at all times, are either of those guys known for running? No. So I don't know how Hazonia is going to really maximize what he's good at on this team. The Blazers under Stotts have never really been a running team at any rate. Yeah.
Let me say this real quick. As far as trying to switch towards the young guys, maybe we are starting to see this transition now at the end of the road trip here. Looking at minutes from last night, Hazonia only got 9. That surprises me a little bit. Just from watching him, I would have thought it was more than that. Just seeing what he did on the floor, he kind of seemed to catch your eye more than what I would have thought was 9 minutes worth. But we got a lot of young guys playing. Simons had 19 minutes. Nasir Little had 12. Jalen Horde had 16. Gary Trent Jr. had 24.
Who was that?
Jalen Horde.
Who the hell is that?
Wait, is that? I was like, hold on, am I getting the name wrong? Yeah, no, that's right. He was our one of the G League dudes, right? He and Moses Brown were kind of the guys that were going back and forth with Texas Legends. And yeah, man, Jalen Horde, he was looking pretty good actually too. He looked good in the minutes he was getting.
What was he doing? Where what did you think looked good? I didn't see the whole game.
He plays Jalen Horde, I think, plays like a smaller version of Nasir, where he's obviously young and he's a wing player, but he's athletic, man, and he moves and he attacks the basket. Like, I think if you got him more time and obviously more like development and just kind of size as he gets older, he could be worth something. He could be good. I liked what I saw from him. But I mean, like Gary Trent Jr. playing 24, that's pretty much starter minutes right there. So
yeah,
I mean, at least if we're seeing the minutes coming down from Dame and CJ and the rest, like you said, Dame played 29 last night, CJ 24. I'm okay with the Whiteside at 27, Bazemore 29. Gosh.
By the way, well, I mean, not only the minutes. I mean, this was a weird game. The Blazers were out of it in the third quarter, down by nearly 30. So, I mean, it was just an odd. By the way, against a Minnesota team that didn't even have Karl Anthony Towns, like that's just disappointing. Weird.
Well, and they're all sick though too. I mean, you see the Blazers run around last night getting on the floor, man. Everybody just hitting the hardwood. Everyone falling.
Yeah.
I think was it Tolliver that like got checked on the hip and like just felt like just flat on his back. Man.
Yeah, and the upper respiratory thing is a real thing. I think CJ's probably still recovering. Hassan's now suffering from it. But like a weird box score from last night. Two more quick things. I want to talk about Melo, but Bazemore, of all of the starters, had the best plus minus at a +2, but he went 0 for 8 from the field. That's bizarre.
Oh my God, that's insane.
Yeah, it's not. It's not good. And then CJ McCollum, a terrifying -31 in his 24 minutes. So,
jeez.
Yeah, not good. Let's talk about Melo, because it's been a while. I actually haven't had a podcast myself for about a month, the holidays and everything else. So we have a whole nother month of sample size to pull from. What, as the Blazers have been decimated by injuries, as we've been talking about, as Melo was brought in to play a certain role, like what is your kind of overall impression about what he's adding to this team and how he's fitting in so far?
I'm liking what Melo is doing a lot more than I thought I would, to be totally honest. And you and I, listeners can, I'm sure, remember back to old Trailcasters episodes. Man, like a whole, back in the last decade, geez, now that we're here in the 2020, it seems so long ago. But yeah, we had some fun conversations about Melo coming to the Blazers at some point or another. And it didn't happen at the time, but to see him here now, I am pleasantly surprised by what he's been doing. And I'm not sure if you happen to hear the Blazers Edge pod that Tara Bowen Biggs did, Team Mom, where she talked to a bunch of fans from different cities that Melo had played in. And the theme, Tara pointed this out on Trailcasters a while ago, the theme was kind of that all these fans had good things to say about Melo. So despite the reputation that he has to fans outside of his franchises, similar to what we saw with Cantor last year, where Cantor had a really bad reputation, then he comes up here and won fans over really quick. I feel like we're seeing a lot of the same from Melo so far this year.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, even the fact that people like you, a huge Blazers fan, are like, hey, my next jersey is going to be a Melo jersey, like that says something.
I never would have thought I would say that. If you asked me that last year, like, hey, you're going to want a Melo jersey next year, I would bullshit.
Yeah, no, I know. This doesn't come up as much in the box score. I guess it does a little bit because he's taking a lot of shots, but A, that's what he does, and B, he has to, given all the injuries. The only thing that I would say, and I wonder if you agree about this, it is tough sometimes to watch him play when it's very obvious that the ball just sort of sticks, where it would be much more useful if the ball would kind of ping around a little bit more and get passed around a little bit more. And there are times where he does kind of intentionally keep the ball moving, but it almost looks like he has to really struggle to remember, I need to pass sometimes, where so often, like, it's not that the shot isn't open, it's just that there could be a better shot. Like, it is 2 steps inside the 3-point line. Is that really the shot you want when you have, Dame and Anthony Simons and CJ on the court at the same time? Is that really the shot you want? So I don't know, like, do you think, like, again, caveat, I know the Blazers are injured. They need offense from somewhere, but, like, do you have any concerns about maybe if the Blazers do get closer to full health, about his ability to integrate into an offense that is functioning maybe a little bit more like we wanted to see it function with all the players back?
I do, a little bit. I think that's a legit concern. And let me, again, caveat, like you said, Melo has had a lot of good offense for us this year. A more varied offense than I would have expected him to bring. I've seen some really good rebounding. I've seen him getting underneath the basket and kind of getting away from some jumpers. And honestly, he and CJ seem to have a pretty good chemistry as far as kind of moving the ball back and forth. But yeah, beyond that, the reputation that has preceded Melo as far as being a bit of a black hole when the ball gets to him, kind of true. We saw at the end of one game the other day, I think on this road trip or maybe right before the trip. I don't remember what game it was, but same kind of thing where Dame, the ball got to Skal, and I think, Dame passed the ball to Skal at the top of the arc, and I think Dame was kind of expecting to get it back, but Skal didn't really know who to give it to, sees Melo open, passes to Melo, and Melo had no motivation to get rid of that ball except to shoot it. So, I'm a little concerned about what that could look like with a healthy roster, but then again, I'm not sure if that'll be a question we really have to deal with this year, so we'll see.
Ouch. Yeah, no, it's true. The other thing, and this is a little bit more nuanced, and maybe I'm off base, you can tell me if I'm just bullshitting, but it does seem that the Blazers offense with him on the floor, it lacks some unpredictability that just makes your offense easier. I think that sometimes his ability to kind of have the ball stick with him is masked when he makes some of those shots. And then you look at the box score and say, at halftime, Melo has 14 points on, 5 of 8 shooting. Like, that's really good. But 3 of those possessions were, as soon as he gets the ball, you can tell the defense, they know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I almost wonder if the ball were moving a little bit more and other people were taking more open shots, if that would allow for the Blazers to get better shots later, just because the defense doesn't know where the next shot's going to come from, whereas with Melo on the floor, it might be more predictable.
I think that's a very good point. I think you're right on, honestly. It is a weakness in our offense. On one hand, he is reliable for offensive production, and like you said, that's kind of just what this team needs right now. But on the other hand, I'm sure that defenses, especially as you get further into the season and approaching playoffs, when people are really starting to lock into their team chemistry and kind of their system, that is going to be a really easy thing for teams to defend. So, not going to be good. But again, I think the bigger factor this season is going to be that no matter what Melo does, I don't know if we have a roster that's going to be able to get too much further than he would than we would get with him on it, I guess.
I do agree with that. And speaking of the roster, the Blazers don't have any centers. Can I ask, we were talking a little bit earlier about the box score, and you mentioned Jalen Horde, and I was half kidding when I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Yeah. Why isn't Moses Brown with the team right now? Why not?
Dude, I am baffled by that. I have literally no idea. Because, again, we're seeing the young guys starting to get minutes last night. And Jalen Horde and Moses Brown, the two of them were both playing with the Legends down in Texas, like I mentioned. And you would think that if Horde is up here, that Moses would be getting some rotation minutes too, especially when the one center that we do have on the roster in Hassan Whiteside is just as sick as CJ. There was a point last night, the fall that he took last night, he went up for a block and kind of caught a Timberwolf underneath him. And when he's on the floor, man, he just looked gassed. Like, he didn't even want to get up. And it wasn't from, injury or pain, but he was just lying there. He was just wiped out. I don't know why you wouldn't have Moses Brown in there. The only thing that comes to mind is, they need bodies that big. They have no one beyond Whiteside and Brown that is over 6'8" on the roster.
You know who they need to call? They need to call Brian Freeman. Get him out of retirement.
Yes, shout out.
Get him on the team.
But yeah, man, honestly, I think the only reason I can think of that they're not playing him is he just too raw? Does he maybe have some other injury thing going? Or is this simply the one bit of control the front office might have about not trying to have the team, we always say that players can't tank, right? And obviously Stotts isn't going to tank. They're trying to do the best they can. One thing the front office might be able to do to keep the team from moving ahead further would be limiting what players they're bringing in.
Oh, so you're suggesting that the Blazers are stealth tanking?
I'm not even saying the Blazers, because, again, the coach isn't, the players aren't, nothing the fans are watching is tanking. But the front office might just be making a decision that we don't need to give them more help if we don't want the team to be pushing it harder, again, if we're seeing all these young guys play, why would we... Yeah, it's just not that season where I think they're that concerned with pushing hard for a playoff spot.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility. And one more thing on Moses Brown, there is something about those two-way contracts, and I'll admit I don't have all the details in my head.
That's a good point.
Yeah, about the maximum number of days they can spend with the team before the contract converts. And I know that they're up against the luxury tax, and so maybe they're trying to save those limited number of days he could be with the team until later in the season or something.
That's interesting. I could... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that was pretty much it. That was my thought.
I could see something like that, and especially if we've got Horde up here, I think they're seeing promising enough stuff from him where maybe he's, again, if we know long-term that Whiteside is not going to be here, and they probably maybe are making some decisions on Moses Brown long-term, like if they see him as a piece that they're trying to develop here in Portland, or if he's more just someone that won't be around. We know that Nurk will be back. We know that Collins will be back. So maybe they're just looking at, like you said, if there's only a limited amount of games they can play him up here, they just want to save that for later, while Jalen Horde is a player they can kind of look at right now, get an idea of, and I wouldn't be too surprised if he was someone they offered a bigger contract to.
Speaking of Nurk, we did have some reporting from Blazers reporter Casey Holdall that Nurk was in uniform and warming up. We've seen him running stairs.
Oh, man.
We've seen him taking jumpers. We know he's moving around. Over under, Nurk is going to be back in 1 month. Over under.
Okay, that's a great question. I have to reference, shout out to Ty over on Trailcasters with me.
Shout out.
We have an over-under bet at March 1st for his return. And I think I'm on the underside of March 1st and Ty was over. I don't know if that's the right way around. Maybe I have it reversed. I always try and...
You think he's going to be back sooner?
I think I do, but again, I might be on the other side when we made the bet. In my head, I always started reversing.
Okay, what do you think right now? And he did ignore that, yeah.
Yeah, right now, I think that Nurk is probably back within the next month, but God, dude, I don't know if it's a good idea. I don't back healthy versus playing big minutes on the floor. I just don't know. Do we want to push this guy if he's going to be our long-term answer and we're not sure how far the season is going?
Well, here's the good news. The injury he's coming back from, right? It's a broken bone. So we're not talking about cartilage. We're not talking about a ligament or a tendon or an Achilles. We're talking about a bone. So to the best of my knowledge, there's not really anything you can do. Bones are one of those things where they heal stronger than they were before.
That's true.
I don't think that I'm not as concerned about that. You don't want to push someone out there that's not conditioned, and maybe that lack of conditioning would make them more prone to some other kind of injury, but I'm not as concerned about that. And I figure if he's been running stairs and all that stuff, he's got to be getting pretty close.
Yeah, he does seem like he's in pretty good shape, man. Running those stairs is not easy, even for a guy that size. It's not going to be easy no matter what shape you're in. So he's got to be somewhere close.
And just looking at the pictures, I don't know if you get this sense, but he actually looks even in the face, he doesn't look as big as he did at the beginning of the season. You look at some of his media day pictures, dude was looking hefty. He looks better. So
yeah, I agree. I think he's looking pretty healthy, man. And you've got a good point that the bones do heal stronger. This is not. It might just be kind of that injury paranoia from everything else we've seen, and I'm not wanting to rush him back. And it is probably a good idea to make sure that he can shake the rust off. That he's not going to be, to get him some minutes at the end of the season is definitely going to help him as far as just probably the confidence on the floor coming back next year too. But man, I'm worried that fans, on one hand, are going to see Nurk and think, all right, we're making a playoff push. Here we go. Let's go. And then it's going to set them up for another letdown if we don't. On the other hand, with how bad this team is wrecked by injuries, boy, it sure would be fun to have Nurk on the floor and watch some of his basketball, man. That would be some fun stuff.
Yeah, and I think that Nurkic's standing in the organization, his confidence in the organization, his relationship with Dame is such where he could probably handle coming off the bench. If you had talked about this when he first got here, might bruise his ego, make him feel bad, but I think that they probably have more leeway with that nowadays. So that's a good thing.
Well, so there's a question, though. If Nurk would be coming off the bench, that seems to imply that you think Whiteside would still be here. You don't think that Whiteside, that they'd be looking to maybe move him at some point soon? Because I feel like the general feeling is that they are probably trying to move. I don't remember if it was Casey or someone else around the team, but I think someone reported that they wouldn't be surprised at all to see either Bays or Whiteside's contract get moved out before the deadline.
I hope that they do. It's just a matter of it takes two to tango. And if another team doesn't see the value in that expiring contract or doesn't see the value in the ability to re-sign him at a more reasonable number, then it may not be under their control. And I hope they do.
Yeah.
So, and that's a podcast for another day about all the different people the Blazers could target. By the way, one more quick thing that folks I've seen a couple people on Twitter saying, why haven't the Blazers made this trade yet? Well, no teams have made any. I think has there been one trade that's happened so far?
Oh, has there? I didn't even know.
There was one. Yeah, there was one minor trade, and I can't remember now the names off the top of my head. But there's not this flurry of activity. So everybody, cool your jets. When we get closer to the deadline, stuff's going to happen. The contingencies will be opened up, and the Blazers will have opportunities to deal if other teams want to do that. So, yeah, I'm not too concerned about nothing happening yet.
Yeah, it is one of these things where I think because of how our roster has looked this year, the Blazers media has been very active about, hey, trade season is open, to just kind of keep fans engaged. But the reality of the situation, Danny Meringue was talking about this on Outsiders last night, I think, shout out to him, that teams generally don't make moves until right before the deadline. It's the prices are going to go down. Look at Kevin Love, for example. All the talk about first it was that Kevin Love wanted out of Cleveland and that he wanted to Portland. Now it's that he doesn't want to Portland at all, but he wants to get moved somewhere. Teams are waiting because Cleveland is wanting too high of a price tag. By the time the deadline gets closer, that price tag has to drop. More likely a deal gets done. Same thing applies for Portland.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not too worried about it. If something is out there, by the way, like these GMs are talking to each other. The Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, those are all kind of tentatively in place. It's just a matter of like when that first domino falls and other stuff kind of sequences behind it. Well, with that, I mean, is there anything else that you want to talk about Blazers related? I mean, the Blazers have a pretty difficult stretch of their schedule coming up. Oof. Is it fair to say, where are you? Are you in team turn it around, make the 8th seed, or are you in team stealth tank? Where are you?
I want to see good basketball, so I'm not against them making the 8th seed. I just don't want fans to have hopes for a big playoff run, no matter what seed we get. And that's the other thing, too. We know the top 6 seeds in the West are probably pretty locked because the top 6 teams are looking pretty solid. Below that, honestly, I think it might only be the top 6 teams in the West that even have an above 500 record. I think 7 below. At least recently, it was only those top 6 that were above 500. So everything below that is kind of in play. We could be 7th, we could be 8th, we could be 10th, and it could all be decided on like the last day of the regular season. I'm not here for tanking. I'm here for good basketball for sure. But I guess the caveat, like you've brought up, is that this team, I don't want them to be pushing for the playoffs if it means that they have to be running Dame and CJ into the ground and wearing them down for next season.
I'm with you on that. And also remember, if you think about, it's hard to predict the future, but Damian Lillard is here long-term and he still has years left of his prime. Is it better to kind of be mired in mediocrity for 3 more years? Or is it better maybe to take a dip this year to increase the chances that the Blazers can maximize the late half of his prime in years 2 and 3? And that's something that I hope that Olshey is talking to Dame and his team about. Look, you're going to be productive into your early 30s, so let's not think that this year is all we have, because I'm sure Dame doesn't appreciate losing. He doesn't like it. Like it's very clear. So that is a balancing act that Olshey has to be working right now, and I don't envy him. That's got to be a tough job.
Well, and like you said, Dame will never tank. Dame is here for every game he can play. Every game he's healthy, he's there to try and win it. So the only thing that the team can do is try to limit his minutes. Just try not to let him go too hard, carry the team, and strain himself doing it. So, yeah, I guess the big summary would be I'm totally down for the team to not chase, but I'm down if the team makes the 8th or 7th seed and makes the playoffs, get the young guys to see what the playoffs look like, what the postseason looks like. But I think in general for the team, it's better if they don't.
Yeah, I agree. I also, if the Blazers get 7 or 8 seed, they have no chance of getting out of the first round of the playoffs in those cases. So
in the playoffs, you're not going to see Dame rest. Like if we make it to the postseason, you're definitely not going to see Dame's minutes cut back. He's going to then be carrying the team, he and CJ both, and whoever else is healthy at that point. And so that's the risky situation. I don't want Dame, especially of all of them, to get an injury in the postseason and have that slow him down next year.
Yep. I'm with you. It's kind of sad to think the Blazers had a really good shot last year, and I know that the Warriors they were hurt when they played them last year, and they still got swept. Like you talk about getting chances to go far in the playoffs. That was one really good chance, and they went as far as they did, and so I mean you can't feel too bad about that. It's been a weird season, man. I have to tell you that. But
hey, look, Brandon, my predictions always about the Lakers. I was still saying this year that I thought the Lakers could very well fall out of the playoffs. This is not at all what I thought, that the Blazers would be outside looking in and Lakers would be near the top end.
That's right.
It's still possible. LeBron might still have some bad luck. I'm not wishing for an injury or anything, but my prediction is not looking so good.
I remember one of the last podcasts you and I did on the Trailcasters. I think that we had Ryan Whitledge as a guest, and we were talking about how good the Lakers might be. I'm pretty sure I was saying they'd be pretty good. good. And I'm pretty sure you remember that. Like I think what I said is they'd be closer to 60 wins than 50. That is maybe looking a little optimistic, but yeah. Plus, you think about Andre Iguodala. Where is he going to go? The Lakers don't really have a lot of flexibility to make a ton of moves, but. Anyway, that's a podcast for another day. We don't want to talk about the Lakers here on a Blazers show.
Yeah, we can't end this on a Lakers note.
No. Go Blazers. Keith, it's always amazing to talk with you. If people wanted to reach out to you and your incredible podcast and see your work, how the hell would people do that?
You can find me at Rip City Keith, and you can find the pod at Trailcasters. Thank you, Brandon, for helping me develop the Trailcasters, helping get that whole thing started. I owe so much of it to you, and really appreciate you having me on here today, man. It's cool to see what you're doing here. I love the clips you're playing. Thanks for the tips. Look at that. You're still teaching me. Even at this point, you're still giving me advice. Much appreciated, my friend. And, hey, I love the Blazers, too. Or wait, I like the Blazers. Wait, did I say that wrong?
It's I like the Blazers, but you could say I love the Blazers. It's all the logo is a heart that's also a beat. Yeah, so it's sort of it's a little ambiguous there. We don't know what that means. I
like that. I saw the B in there too. I like we did the logo. That's good work.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate you, and talk to you soon. Thank you so much again to the homie Keith. It was so good to talk to him again. I was telling him after the podcast that honestly, having guests on that you don't know that well can be a little nerve-wracking sometimes. It can be tough, and you might feel a little bit kind of tight and maybe not full of yourself. But to talk with Keith, it was just like the other 100 podcasts we've done. It was so much fun. I really appreciate him. Remember, you can check out his show, him and Ty Delbridge, running the Trailcasters at Trailcasters across all social media. And you can find us always at ILiketheBlazers on Twitter or Facebook. The thing that would help a ton is if you wouldn't mind giving a 5-star review and a rating, however you're getting the podcast, whether it's Google Play or Stitcher, whether it's the podcast app on your iPhone or CastBox. Having a review and a rating really helps a lot, so I'd appreciate that. And always you can send us emails if you wanted to do that at ILiketheBlazers@gmail.com. And with that, that's about it. I am your host, Brandon Goldner. I appreciate all of you, and until next time, go Blazers.